Welcome, I'm Jeff Johnston. This is the Living Undeterred podcast, and today I continue the journey through the Johnston brothers. A few weeks back, I was honored to have my brother Scott here talking about the afterlife and his quest to find answers after we leave this earth. Today, I have a different angle. This is my brother Dan. I'm going to have Dan explain a little bit about himself. Obviously, I know his life story because he's my brother, but I'm going to call this the outdoor advocate. Dan, to me, I can't say he's my favorite brother because that would be unfair to Scott and Steve, but he's probably the most Renaissance man brother that I have. And he is so active in so many things, but the outdoors is kind of where I want to spend today in regards to things that you do, what compelled you to get into the outdoors, how you're helping the company that you work for in so many different ways. I've been watching your podcasts and you've been so many speaking engagements, and it's exciting. So with that, Dan, thank you for being on the Living Undeterred podcast. You and I have, the last few weeks, spoken on the phone about what we were going to talk about today. And I didn't really want to just get married to the outdoors. I thought we could, and I have a couple of cheat sheets here thing to get to maybe make our conversation a little bit more exhilarating. But what got you into the outdoors? I remember back when you were just a lad, Dad would go out pheasant hunting and duck hunting, and you were the only one that out of the three brothers that, was hanging around Dad in the garage when he was tinkering around with stuff. You always had an interest in that type of stuff. And you ended up gravitating to the outdoors. So what was the big pull of the outdoors for you?
That's a really good question. First of all, thanks for having me.
Oh, you bet.
Four of us brothers, me being the youngest, and all of us were horrified of speaking engagements, whether it was on a camera or debating in class or whatever. And now, ironically, three of us do it all the time. Scott talks about ghosts, I talk about the outdoors, and you talk about, life challenges.
Well, Steve's a performer too.
Steve's a performer. I can't wait to have him on here.
He lets his guitar do the speaking.
It's a good point. He talks through his fingers.
Yeah.
But now, to answer your question, it was in me, Jeff. From day one, I've been covered up with it. I was always active in the outdoors, but I was always in love with it. I remember one time, and we didn't preload any of these questions, so we're really going on the fly.
I may not even get to them.
Yeah, but I remember one time I was really young on a field trip, and it was elementary school on a field trip. We went to Lake McBride in a bus, a whole bunch of us. And the teachers got us all corralled, probably multiple teachers, and it was so long ago I hardly remember. And we went to Lake McBride Beach, which is in Iowa, and the rest of the class is all gathered up, and I'm staring at the water. It's seriously, I can remember that part of it pretty clearly, and I'm staring at the water, and we start walking around, milling around, and here's where it gets funny. So I walk down to this boat dock, and of course I'm looking for fish, right? So little cracks in the dock, and I see a bluegill. So now I'm thinking, how am I going to catch that thing? I don't have any bait, I don't have a rod, I don't have anything. So I find a little piece of old line with an old gold hook on it with a dried up piece of
How old were you again?
Oh, goodness gracious. 4th grade, 3rd grade. Field trip.
And you're the only one down there trying to figure out how to catch a bluegill.
Yeah. So I walk down on this dock, I find this piece of line, and I pick the crawler off with my finger because it was dried up. And I dropped that hook down there, and that thing ate it. And I'll never forget it. I got it, pulled it up, it got stuck in the crack of the dock, and it got off. And it's just one of those, I'll never forget. I went home that night, and I'm just all jacked up.
It was an epiphany moment.
It's always been in me. And to this day, I've never lost that passion for the outdoors. Whether it's hunting or fishing or now educating in the outdoors. And the biggest joy for me now is getting, especially younger people, to your point, which you made to start this conversation. Fishing is a vehicle. The outdoors are a vehicle to much greater things, and I kind of hope we go there tonight because it's so important.
We will, for sure.
Yeah.
But tell me a little bit about St. Croix. I'm not a fishing expert by any means, but I know, obviously through you're a little biased with St. Croix, so I don't have a lot of other polls to compare with, but I know in my life fishing that St. Croix has been, wow, for the last decade, I've spent so much time with I have a Legend, I think, and I have another legendary St. Croix rod, and I know Gary Spiker, who was on the show a few weeks back, is a big advocate of St. Croix. It seems to me you guys have a pretty good hold in the fishing market. So why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about what you do day to day? What's an average day for you? Are you in the stores setting up the displays? Are you making the calls to the owners of the stores? Or what are you doing day to day for St. Croix?
Well, personally, I'm our North American sales manager.
Now with COVID, it's probably a little bit different
So
than it was.
I'm not traveling as much, but I have a vast array of sales reps across the country and Canada that report to me, and we manage the things that you speak of, whether it's promotion coordination or selling rods directly or sales programs, incentivizations, training, all the things that make a business work. I just oversee that piece of the puzzle. But St. Croix, it's a really cool story, and we'll get to that too later when we talk about the why and core values and connecting passion to using things that you love, whether it's golf or fishing or music or whatever, as a vehicle to satisfy your passions. Okay, St. Croix epitomizes that. They're family-owned, largest rod manufacturer in the U.S. Over
so
75
they're a privately
years
held
old.
company?
Absolutely.
Wow, that's cool.
Which is very rare.
Yeah, it is, because normally these companies get gobbled up by conglomerates and they disappear.
So we have total control over the manufacturing process, completely in love with all of our anglers. We call our customers our anglers. They're really part of a family.
Oh, absolutely.
So we're all about them. You know, that's what drives us, our product innovation and development and everything. So it's been a great ride, you know, for sure. I mean, when you let's rewind back to that third grade story. If I ever imagined I'd be where I am now doing what I do, it would have been literally a dream. So there's challenges with anything we do, but to work in the industry I work in has been a blessing.
I have so many stories I remember fishing, but I remember vividly my aha moment when I knew that, you know, there's Dan Johnston and there's me. It's like Dan Gable and other wrestlers. It's like we were at Minnesota fishing, and you know, you always fished in the front of the boat with the trolling motor, and I was in the back. I think our brother Scott was with us, and yeah, I'm just getting frustrated. You know, I think I'm fairly good. I'm throwing these things in, and you got these damn things. You're throwing these sunken trees, and you know, you're thinking. Sometimes I think you have gills. I have to maybe check you out because you think like a fish. So you saw my frustrations, and you kind of looked over, and you know, compassion kicked in, and you said, "Hey Jeff, get up here. You know, stand up here and." There's a bass in there, I know it. So I get up there and I'm all confident, eager, and I'm throwing my jig and pig or whatever you guys call it, and I can't catch this damn thing. And I could see you just getting frustrated because I know you can see the bass down there. I can't. And I know you could see the bass probably laughing at my presentation. Like the way I'm bouncing it off looks like it's a dead pop can or something. And then you said, "Okay, Jeff, that's enough." There's like 15 casts. The first frickin' cast you threw in there, I think you pulled out like a 4.5 pound largemouth bass, and I just knew at that moment. I said, "Okay, I'm in presence of a legend here," and I mean that in all sincerity, Dan. Most people that know about your fishing prowess knows that this could have been a career for you, professional fishing, which is where I'm going with this story. I asked you one time. I said, "You know, Dan, I know a lot of talented golfers that never took it up professionally. I know a lot of talented musicians that never took it." When I mean took it up, I mean like toured and tried to make, be famous. And you said, "Jeff, the moment that I take this into a profession where I have to pay my bills, then I'll lose the love that I have for fishing." And that just like was an aha moment for me about how much respect you have for the art of fishing, that you didn't want to, taint it by becoming a professional. Now, I don't know if you remember telling me that, but I know you get asked all the time, "Dan, why don't you become a professional bass fisherman?" And is that kind of how you would answer it today?
Yeah, it might be one of my biggest regrets down the road when I get older, though, because man, along the way.
Oh, you're not too old.
Well, there's a friend of mine actually 2 years older than me fishing FLW right now who's really trying to get me to do it.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
I know so many people that do it that love it. I also know so many people that do it that don't.
Right.
And to your point, I didn't want to in any way disrail the passion I have for the sport for the right reasons. And I've been very lucky to be able to do that to a large degree, from doing national television shows to still fishing a few tournaments to teaching fly casting instruction, for example.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, on the bass side, crappie tournaments. I shot a TV show on crappie fishing down at the Ozarks a couple of years ago. So I still get that fix, right? But the competitive side, Jeff, if anybody knows that, I mean, this guy and I, for all the viewers out there, I mean, I can't tell you how many times on the golf course we've about...
Oh, basketball court.
Yeah, basketball. You were always so much better being basketball, but golf, we were pretty close. You just killed me around the greens. But we all have a competitive nature within us. Probably you and I more than the other.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So,
well, you and I got in fist fights over sports, whereas the other brothers, we never did.
But on the fishing side, I have that too. But now it has changed because I would say in my earlier in my, I would call it a fishing career, it was all about catching. It was all about numbers. It was all about catching more than the next person.
Right.
100%.
Right.
It's not that way at all. I get more enjoyment out of watching other people catch them, especially somebody that's never done it, and that because I know what it did for me. Right. And that's where it's at. Do I still like to catch them? Absolutely. But that's not what drives me anymore. It's figuring them out. Bow hunting's the same way. The kill is anticlimactic to me. Yeah. It's everything that leads up to it.
See, I never got into hunting.
Yeah.
I had a bad experience trapping when I was a youth, where, and actually it's a very sad story, but I trapped for any reasons that a 14-year-old traps. It wasn't the money. It was, literally trying to catch something elusive. And Dan Oakes and I were, in the morning, we would go check our traps like at 5:30 or 6, and we'd come back, shower up, and go on the bus and go to school. And this one morning, man, I caught this baby raccoon, and I remember this to this day. And it didn't die. We'd set up a snare where it was supposed to fall into the water and drown. Well, it didn't die. Well, I pull up, and I think we had a pellet gun. I pulled up, and it looked like a little dog. It just looked like a puppy. And I still to this day just am so disappointed in myself. But I took the noose, put it around its neck, and I drowned it. And that's the last time I ever did anything killing an animal in my entire life. I never hunted again. If I did, I did it because maybe I was asked to go and I felt obligated to go. But I never got the thrill of killing an animal after that moment. Now, does it make me emotionally weak? Does it make me fragile? I don't know what it makes me. That's my story, and I'm standing to it. I'm sticking by it. But I just had that a moment where I thought, I don't really want to kill animals, and they're not God's creatures, because personally I don't believe in God. So for me it was more of just a moment where I thought, well, so I remember helping out my dad with Pheasants Forever and donating money and time and things, trying to help the wildlife and stuff. And so anyway, I do kind of get a little irritated when I see pictures of posting of animals, and they got their heads propped up on a rock, and I'm like, what do you, as a man, what are you lacking to feel like that's what you have to show people? Can't you just kill it and not show people? I don't know. I have a fish on my wall out here, so I'm being a hypocrite.
I think I respect the fact that people don't like to fish. I respect the fact that people don't like to hunt. I respect there's certain people that don't like heavy metal music. I love it. I respect...
No, wait a minute. Nobody dislikes heavy metal music, man. You're wrong there.
I respect all of it. Now, to me... It's more about the strategery. For example, when I look at bow hunting, from putting mineral out or whatever antler growth, this time of year, to running cameras in the fall and patterning and the scouting and the wind scenting down, understanding all the things about it, just to trick such an unbelievable, magnificent animal. And what a lot of people don't realize is I pass up 100 a year before I shoot one.
Right,
so,
and they're not going to waste.
Oh no.
Yeah, you guys donate.
In fact, I donate my buck.
That's what I thought.
That's what
I thought. Yep. Yeah, you told me that.
So it's to each his own, and I certainly respect your.
And if we didn't have hunting,
sure,
we'd have rabid animals in everyone's backyard attacking their pets, and we'd be hitting animals on the road every day. So I understand the aspect of trying to as a race, as we expand and build it. We're cutting down the habitat. So where are these animals supposed to go? And so organizations like Pheasants Forever and stuff, they're trying to find marshes, and so there's a nice relationship there. So I'm not anti-hunting by any means. I am anti-hunting for Jeff Johnston.
Right. Yeah,
so, okay, walleye or bass? You could only fish one the rest of your life. What would it be?
Well, if you're going to give me that choice.
Yes, I am giving you that choice.
It'd be bass.
Okay, that's what I figured.
For sure.
But you're a damn good walleye fisherman,
man. I
man.
love walleye fishing. Not as good as a lot of people.
But you fish it like bass. I mean, when I've been
in
because I walleye fish, I sit there and I lindy rig.
Yep.
I turn on my music, I listen, and I don't drink alcohol anymore, but I'll have a water or pop, and I'll fish walleyes, and I'll fall asleep. And you're up there, jigging and stuff and working like you're bass fishing. And I'm like, you're the only walleye fisherman I know that fishes as if you're fishing for bass.
Nah, there's a lot of them.
I don't know them.
It works really good. There's a lot of you got to figure walleye is merely a predator, and they predate on a variety of different forage bases, and one of which, the minnow, is swimming around horizontal, up and down, top of the water column, on the bottom. Warm water, they're moving faster. Cold water, they're moving slower. It's the same thing as bass. We have baits that emulate that you don't have to drag something to catch them, and it's a lot of fun. But there's, it could be crappie. Crappie's probably over walleye for me now. I love crappie fishing.
And I know Dad, call him Doc. He gets into crappie fishing a lot.
He's good at it too.
I'll tell you what, he's another guy that I'd put him up there.
He's
the best fisherman I've ever met in my
Absolutely.
life. Obviously, children are biased with their parents, but in this case, I'm not. And Dad was just like so good, but he was so humble.
Yeah.
I mean, he wouldn't sit around the campfire and brag about how many fish he caught.
Yeah.
Wasn't Dad.
What Dad taught
but you could
me
go in the
is
boat with
persistence.
Dad. Oh yeah.
He was just in it. It comes from what he was a physician, So Dad has always instilled to this day just that he's just very, very focused and goes after it. And I'm a lot more. Let's get bit. No, let's go here. Let's go here. Let's go here. And he taught me a lot.
Yeah, because you and him spent more time in the duck blinds and the other three boys.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I duck. Scott never duck hunted, neither did Steve.
Right.
At least I don't remember. But you and Dad had that bonding time, like Ian and I have on the golf course. Right. Roman and I have scuba diving. You and Dad had the hunting part of it, so you were kind of molded that way, right. But no, Dad just from a fishing standpoint, man, he was. And even from hunting too, he could hit ducks. I remember one time we went duck hunting.
I know it.
You know the story.
Oh yeah.
And it was getting dark.
Wood ducks.
Yeah. I sucked. I probably was listening to Iron Maiden in the duck boat and stuff, and driving Dad crazy. And I remember one time we were just ready to pick up the decoys, and these wood ducks are just zooming in like frickin' F-15s coming in, and Dad's like, here Jeff, go out there and get a wood duck or something. So I'm sitting out there, and these damn things are flying by, and I can't hit them. And Dad is literally in tears in the boat laughing. And these wood ducks and they're fast, aren't they?
Yeah, they're like TIE fighters, too. They do a lot of this stuff.
Well, they're
not a straight line flyer. A lot of
I figured out they weren't a straight line. I would shoot here, and the damn thing would be over here. And Dad, we got done, just said, I think, maybe Jeff, hunting's not your profession.
Right.
Just respectfully, maybe try investments or something. So, anyway, that's a shout out to Dad. So we've been fortunate to have Mom and Dad both still alive at 87, 88 years old. Pretty fortunate. I do. The fact we can't see them, with COVID makes it more difficult. But they just got their second vaccine shot, so now I think I'm more comfortable going out and seeing them. But anyway, let's talk about the outdoors in respect to a coping mechanism for the problems we have with society. Yeah. And this is a huge thing for me. The living undeterred mindset that I've kind of embraced is this resiliency, this dealing with trauma, which really we all have a story. We all have trauma. I know you have been through some personal traumatic events. One involved a suicide, a death. And when myself, obviously, you're related to Seth as well. Our oldest son died of a heroin overdose. A day doesn't go by where I haven't heard something happening, whether they have a diagnosis of cancer. So, trauma is not elusive in respect to humanity. It's within all of us. How we deal with trauma is really what defines the quality of life for the rest of our life. And so this living undeterred mindset is giving people coping mechanisms to deal with the ups and downs of what life routinely gives us, opportunities for us to better our lives as opposed to unraveling. So with that in mind, when you look at the outdoors, I compare it to a release, a coping mechanism like golfing or running or, working out. Those are coping mechanisms. Do you see people kind of being pulled into the outdoors from a therapeutic angle? Mental health is a huge deal right now. 150,000 people died in the United States last year from overdose, alcoholism, and suicide. 150,000 people. There's a lot of people hurting. COVID's making it worse. Talk about an activity that's COVID friendly, Dan. oh my Lord, I mean, fishing and scuba diving are about, it's hard to get COVID with you in a boat by yourself, But how have you found, whether it's your clients or your circle of friends or even yourself, how have you found fishing to be a safe space for you to be when you need a safe space?
Well, it definitely is. Hunting would be the same thing. I mean, we all, it's funny. We all have different reasons why we fish, those of us that do it a lot, but the one common denominator is the therapeutic side, whether people can espouse it or not. For example, if you were to poll 500 hardcore fishermen, they may all give you a reason why they do it, many of which will be different than others, but the common denominator is that true love of smelling the coffee in the morning and the little bit of chill in the morning with the sun's coming up and the smell of the boat exhaust. It's hard to explain.
Yeah.
But it's those things that almost are a subliminal trigger to passion, and you don't understand it till you really get into it. Golf is the same thing, Jeff. I know you go out in the morning and that first putt, there's a little dew on the green. You can smell that. I know you can.
The wind and the trees
and this. So
yep.
Back to your point about fishing being such a great social distancing avenue, is American Sport Fishing Association concluded 8 million anglers came into the sport last year.
New?
Yeah, new.
Wow.
So obviously, all of us in the fishing industry benefit, but where I benefited the most, and I have a podcast out of Chicago that I'm on every week.
Yep.
And we did an episode on this not that long ago.
What's the name of the podcast?
We Fish ASA.
Yeah, I just want to throw that out there for people that have a piece of paper.
We'll
probably run it at the end if we can.
We're on episode 264, and it's cool because sometimes we talk hardcore fishing, other times it's legislative, other times it's more, why do we do things? I definitely want to get to the why at some point, but I guess the point that I was trying to make is on the therapeutic side of fishing. It is something, every time my life has been really, really hard, and I don't know if any of us, you and I certainly, but I don't know if any of us haven't either been through something horribly tragic or certainly know somebody that has. And all of us have a release. Unfortunately, some of them are really bad.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes they're great. And the outdoors has been that every single time with no exceptions. When things have been really tough, that boat's on the lake, or I'm sitting in a tree, or that's where I go. And now that I've been so fortunate to have been given a platform, I was invited by Al Linder. A lot of people have probably heard of him, to do a fishing career workshop to speak to young people through how we get into the fishing industry. But the point that I tried to make to these kids is discover your core values, discover your passions. Try to catch them. We'll teach you how to catch them better, no question, but understand why you're doing it, and try to pass that along to others, because I can't think of many better places to go when times get tough than the outdoors. In my opinion.
It's addictive.
It's unbelievable.
And I write about and I speak about addiction, as in negative addictions and positive addictions. The outdoors is a positive addiction. And a friend of mine who owns Dive Ventures dive shops, which are, their home office is Omaha, but they have an office here in North Liberty. He was on interview in one of my podcasts. I did a Dive Ventures show. The theme was the ocean and scuba diving, very similar to what you do with fishing and hunting. And Dean said something that resonated with me that I now, in my last blog I just posted, I wrote about this, and I think it's a very interesting aspect, or a thought process. And he calls it passion with a purpose. And I think St. Croix embodies it as a corporate culture, but then you embody it as a individual, fisherman or outdoorsman, I guess I'll call you, is that what you have is a passion, but there's a purpose behind it. And that purpose could be to help a 9-year-old that lost his parents, to divorce or a car accident, teach that kid how to fish, how to enjoy the beauty of pulling that bluegill through the dock and having it fall off like you did. And there's some romance with that. There's a seductive element to the outdoors that someone who's really addicted can't get away from it. And that is the definition of an addiction. But people, unfortunately, think all addictions are negative. And I think you and I are proving with some of the things that we do from a compulsive standpoint that it's not negative. So Dan, we were discussing in depth about the addictive elements of certain things that pull people into the abyss, as we call it. But then there's also addictions that are very healthy. And you by all sense and purposes, are an addicted outdoorsman. Each specific, task that you do, fishing, hunting, bow hunting, whatever it is, even mushroom hunting, things like that that are all outdoor related, become very addictive. So I guess, do you think it's possible in the line of work that you do to, I don't want to say do too much of it, but do you think you could get too addictive to the outdoors where you just neglect real life and you almost just pull away from the reality and you're not really dealing with things? You just kind of escape to the outdoors. Think that could ever be a problem?
Oh, it absolutely can. I think, if I were to answer that question, introspectively, I would say I've always felt that I've had a foundation beyond fishing,
right?
That I've always hung my hat on, and fishing has certainly been a huge passion, but I've always believed in balance.
And you just threw me a softball to hit out of the park, because I really like that that aspect, because you and I talk at length, and in all the times we've ever had conversations on this particular topic I want to talk to you about, we've never had any emotions come up that aren't constructive, beneficial to both of us. We both walk away from conversations and we both feel like we gained something. And that's, how do you define faith? I mean, everybody has a different definition, but how does Dan Johnston define faith, and how does that get you through the tough times in life?
Well, it gets me through more than tough times. It makes me appreciate the good times. It gives me balance, and it's very blind. I think that's a great descriptor. It's something you have to truly go all in and believe in, or it's not coming to you. That much I do know. I also know that if you have it, then there's to say the rewards are limitless is the biggest understatement I could ever make, because that is really the foundation of everything that I do. Fishing is an incredible vehicle. Hunting is an incredible vehicle. Being able to give back and educate on the fishing side now, and to educate myself so I get better at fishing is huge too. But I always relate it when I'm speaking to young people anymore, and I've been so blessed to be given a platform to do this nationally, is I start with that foundation. And it starts with core values, principles, character, things you really strongly believe in. And now I know mine. I challenge people to find theirs, and I don't for any reason expect anybody to this isn't a universal thing.
Right.
You have yours.
Right.
But when you find that, and that's what you stand on, all these other activities are great, but if you don't have that, to me,
right,
I have no starting point. So that's you asked, and that's where I'm at. And
the great thing is everything you described can be had without faith.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of learning, is that there are set ways that people think that the only way to get to the next step, I have to have a certain foundation. But I'm saying there's different ladders out there that can get you to the same, I don't even want to say conscious element of your life, but that the spirituality aspect that people aspire to each day. You get up and you have this calling, this compelled feeling, and it really, a feeling and a belief certainly doesn't equate for facts. I mean, you can have a belief in Bigfoot, but until somebody finds a Bigfoot, they don't exist. So you could say, well, but I believe, I'm 100% belief that there's Bigfoot. I respect that. I do. And I actually, this is what Scott and I talked about in our Afterlife show is, does a belief that there's a sincerest belief in something equate to a fact? And, unless someone is pretty ignorant of what a fact is, then I think it's difficult to commit to that ideology. However, is it important that the answer is yes or no? Not really. I mean, I guess if you think that the only way you can be a good human being and the well-being of your life is as high as it can be, and all the people around you are benefiting with your presence, then does it really matter what your belief structure is, or is it more important what your behavior structure is? How do you behave as a person? I'd rather have somebody who doesn't believe in anything that's just an overall great person than someone who believes in something that's an asshole, that's a jerk. And fortunately, I don't know many jerks in either side of the fence. So for me, I have faith as well. We just define it differently, which is proof to anyone watching this that I don't think you have to drink the Kool-Aid of any specific ideology to have a very productive, inspired life, and also inspire the people around you. Unless I'm wrong on that, which...
No, you do so many amazing things, from the charitable side to just being great friends with so many people to, I could go on and on and on, that I certainly wouldn't debate that. I just think we have different positions.
Yeah.
I'm not saying one's right or one's wrong, but when I say it's blind, I truly mean that.
Yeah.
It's something I can't say, here it is, Jeff.
I just think it's,
but,
for me, it's interesting when I meet someone on social media and they say, "Wow, man, you got a nonprofit you started. You've wrote a book and,
mm-hmm.
and you haven't made any money on your book. I mean, all my profits for my book go into my nonprofit.
Right.
I do all these speaking engagements. I am active in lots of things, and there's an assumption that I'm driven by a God. And when they find out that I'm agnostic and
mm-hmm.
I'm not willing to subscribe to that belief, am I open to it? Sure. I just need more evidence for me. Mm-hmm. That people are set back, like, well, how can you be doing these good things unless you believe in God? And I'm like, oh, it's quite very easy. I don't have to inject anything into my life to do good things. I don't need help from anything other than me. And that's the beauty of discovery. That's the beauty of fully being open-minded, is saying, go back to Bigfoot. When someone says Bigfoot exists, and say someone who doesn't know, the onus is really on the person that says it exists. I mean, if I'm out there telling people Bigfoot exists and I'm going to have a discussion with somebody and they're pretty adamant Bigfoot doesn't, well, that person can't prove Bigfoot doesn't exist. There's just no possible way. You can't disprove a negative. So I go back to, for me personally, Dan, and I'm as open-minded on this topic as possible. I've read, I've written, I've researched, and I'm just waiting. I'm like that bluegill under the dock. I'm waiting for a little bit bigger worm to come down for me to bite on. And it just hasn't happened yet. And I've had plenty of reasons. I lost a child, lost a marriage, been as an alcoholic, compulsive gambler. I have a foundation to have a savior. I just don't feel like I don't need to be saved. I haven't asked for permission for someone to save me. And I don't feel I'm broken. Even though I've had all these things happen to me, but that's just the deal you made when you're born. That's just life. I mean, it's no different than a fish swimming around one day. And next thing you know, there's something to eat, and he eats it, and then he's, boom, pulled out of the boat, and then he's lunch. It's like, poor fish, but that's life. He just picked the wrong worm to eat. Where I'm going with this, I don't know. But anyway, I think you and I have done a good job over the past in having these conversations, and faith is an important part of humanity. I wish more people have faith. But again, just the definition of it is different for everybody.
I would add something to that.
Yeah.
In the state of this, and I'll use this to the U.S. for example, but as divisive as we are in this country, we need more people that share the attitude that we have.
Right.
And agree to disagree, I don't like that.
I don't either.
It's overused.
I don't either.
It's overused.
It's cliche.
Totally.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to, I would say, two things. Mm-hmm. And the older I get, fortunately, the better I understand this, because I was never that way. I was always very judgmental when I was younger, to a fault. 100%. I've learned so much.
Well, we'll agree to disagree, Dan. No.
Right. But I would say two things. I think, number one, it's always important to understand that just because you believe something, somebody else may not.
Yeah.
And you have to understand that in order to have relationships and to have things flourish and anything, in order to be happy, you have to be able to listen and truly, genuinely understand other people's point of view.
No, absolutely.
Instead of trying to be dictatorial. But the second thing,
look at the elections we had. It was just disgusting.
The second thing I would say is, I think we need more critical thinking, though.
Mm-hmm.
And you epitomize that. I have so much respect for you, because a lot of people say, well, I saw it here, I read it here, 5 people told me, my friends say it, therefore I am.
I like that critical
You're
thinking.
not that way.
Yeah.
You're a critical thinker, meaning Jeff Johnston's going to decide what's true, and you're going to use your own paths through your own research. Right. You deflect things that come in, so you're going to find your own way. And I think it's a really good thing. I compliment you for that. And fortunately, I tend to do that now a lot myself.
Yeah.
And it's one of the, it hasn't made me more reclusive, but it kind of has, because I kind of get in a box a little bit, because I just believe in what I believe in, because I've kind of figured it out myself, and I don't really want to be convinced otherwise, if that sounds bad.
No. Matter of fact, my wheels are spinning. It's like how many different roads I want to go down.
Yep.
But I'm 54 and you're 53. I'm soon to be 55 next week. Is that right?
That's hard to believe.
It is hard to believe.
It's true, though.
But it's like, there's a progression to learning. You certain things that you learn at a certain age, you think that's the most amazing thing in the world. And you get older, you learn more, but you realize how less you really know about things. We look at. I'm kind of one that when I think of scenarios, I think of the possibility versus the probability, and I write about this a lot in investing and things like that, or just life in general. What's the probability that a Bigfoot exists? Go back to my Bigfoot love, versus what's the possibility that it exists? Possibility is obviously there's a possibility. Anything, there's a possibility God exists, Bigfoot, whatever. What's the probability is where I kind of like to hang my hat, not possibilities. I don't play the what if games too much. So, going back again, this whole thing started with addiction and the terrible state of mind people are in, and fishing being a coping mechanism and all these things. And for me, I sprinkled in faith just because I think faith is kind of that arrow in the quiver that people go to. And you know what? By all means, I don't care if you believe in Gozar the Barbarian. If you're a good person, you don't lie, don't steal, don't cheat, take care of yourself, health-wise, have healthy relationships, keep learning, keep breaking down barriers, then who the hell cares what you believe? I mean, like I said earlier, I'm more attracted to human beings on their behavior and less their belief structure, and this show will be taping after the show when Roman and I talk about him coming out as being gay. So a few months back when my youngest son Roman came out that he was gay, that presented a whole new opportunity as a dad, as a heterosexual dad, to understand that Roman was actually inviting me to be on his journey, and not me telling him how his heart should feel towards another human. Your heart doesn't have a gender, is what I say. Now, if I'm a staunch Republican and I'm a conservative and I'm a Catholic, and there's a high probability that my son's not going to come to me. There's a high probability that barrier of, say, religion that is between my son and I, because homosexuality is viewed, differently than a non-religious person, is that's one hurdle that Roman would have to deal with before he presented me this opportunity to be on his journey. And for me, I think the big thing as a non-religious human, the fact that Roman, I was the first person he went to, just showed me the confidence he has that I wasn't going to inject something into this conversation that didn't need to be injected, like a celestial being doesn't need to be involved in Roman's homosexuality. So what I did, Dan, is as a parent, is I thought, okay, I got one chance to F this up. I got one chance for Roman ever to come to me to tell me that he's gay. And I say this to any parent watching this, not in a religious aspect or whether you believe in homosexuality or not, as a opportunity that your children will present to you if they trust you to have these conversations. And then you as a parent can decide what road to go down. And if you're a strong Catholic and you're against homosexuality, then take that position and deal with the consequences. If your son decides to do something drastic like suicide, which has happened, I think adolescents are 5 times more likely to commit suicide. Gay adolescents are 5 times more likely to commit suicide than straight adolescents. 5 times. So if your son kills himself over something as ridiculous as their sexuality, that's a problem with society, not you or me or parenting. That's society not doing a good job, not with the kids, but with the parents, understanding that as much as we want our kids to be mini us, they're mini them. They are them, and we birthed them, we raised them, and after that, it's their journey.
Right.
So I'm not sure I got off on that, but you and I sit on the phone some nights for 2 hours, and we start off on fishing and end up in some other area.
Let me respond to that.
Yeah, and I'm not really asking you to respond. But
No,
I think you and I have a good talks on this stuff.
Because the other night we were on the phone and this topic came up, and there's something that I was talking about that's a little more ancillary, but it really tied right into this.
Right.
To me, this whole topic is very simple. It's
love.
It's unconditional love. It's not just love. It's unconditional love, meaning love with no conditions. In other words, I have my faith. There's no doubt. My love for my son, man. There's very, very little he could throw at me, short of going shooting someplace up. right?
Yeah.
That I
but you would
wouldn't-
still love him.
Oh, you kidding me?
Yeah. I know. Until you
it's
have a kid, you can't.
unconditional. Well, and everybody says that when you have your own this and that, but the foundation, and I'll go back to that foundational statement I made a while back. That's my starting point, and that's right. Unconditional love for, and it's really a group of people. It's not just my son. You happen to be in that circle, young man, but.
Well, I love you too,
You don't
man.
judge. You don't judge on people's behaviors or actions or faith or direction or whatever. And judge is really a horrible word.
It is.
I think
Judgment Day is a horrible concept.
I think you love unconditionally, and it creates this Teflon shell around your kid that where he can just tell you anything. Mm-hmm. But you have to establish that when they're really young.
Yeah.
I think that your actions prove unconditional love way more than just saying it. One thing I did tell my son Caleb years ago, and I embarrassed the heck out of him because I used to coach his youth football teams.
Damn good quarterback back in the day. I remember.
Still can throw it. I told him, I said, I'm going to tell you I love you every single day, whether you like it or not.
Absolutely.
And he used to get embarrassed in front of the football team. And to this morning, he's going to the gym to work out, and I said, I love you, buddy.
Do you hug him?
I quite a bit, but I tell him I love him every single day, and now he's 6'2", 185, and can take me down in the drop of a hat.
Yeah,
it'll never change. Someday when I'm grandpa's age, Kalen calls Grandpa, we call Doc, and Kalen's my age, I'll still be saying that to him. I promise you, every single day. That'll never change, and it's to your point. So
no, I'm thinking about Seth, who passed away.
Yeah.
Our oldest son, and kind of the opportunity that I was presented on a silver platter to, like I write about in my book about the two roads. Here's an opportunity where I could easily go down. Well, I have to go down one of two roads. Mm-hmm. There's no more neutrality when you bury a child. The dynamics in every relationship you have changed. It's different than a mom or dad or a pet or even a sibling. Although sibling death is one of the highest stress inducers for the other remaining siblings. So for like Roman and Ian, losing Seth is something I need to be cognizant of as they grow up. And that's one of the reasons why I had to be sensitive with Roman's coming out, because it's on top of their brother being gone. So it's very much dancing on eggshells. But, going back to... I'm kind of forgetting where I went with this point. I already forgot. That's ADD. But no, I think, I was talking about Seth and about how much, when Seth died, I was presented this opportunity to go down these two roads. And one road would be just, anger and despair and hatred, and you end up just drinking yourself to death. Or you say, hey, this is an opportunity for me to just awaken and to find a new reason to live my life. The limited time we have as humans, I don't want to wait to die to find heaven. I want to create heaven now on earth. And that's the mindset I live my life by. And I respect those people that are looking forward to going to heaven or fearing going to hell. I fortunately don't ever have to kind of play that because I don't believe in either one. So for me, it's like, what can I do to create heaven in my life today? And my podcast is a good example. Yeah. Having you on as a guest, this is this is literally my heaven.
Yeah.
I've got Eddie from Iron Maiden, and I've got all my other heavy metal stuff. And I'll take a quick second to talk about this backdrop, because when I started the podcast, someone said, well, what type of background do you want? A library or plants? And I said, hell no, I want Jeff Johnston. So Iron Maiden's my favorite heavy metal band. That's a check that we donated to the Alcohol and Substance Abuse Council here in Cedar Rapids, which I'm an active board member. And that was a fundraiser that our son Ian did through golf, through Leadership Links. We gave about $7,000 to ASAC after Seth was a patient there. That's a scuba diving original artwork Roman and I bought in Bonaire, one of our scuba trips. And this is Ian in a golf tournament down in Missouri, the AJJ tournament, the only one he ever won. And it was like winning a major in pro golf, but it was for junior golf. So this is my life. And so why would I want to have fake plastic trees and library books and a Iowa Hawkeye banner and things like that? It's like, this is not
the
that
Hawkeye banner.
Yeah, I was just saying, I dropped the ball on that. But I do love Iowa. Delete that, Molly. No, this is who I am. This podcast is who I am.
Yeah.
I invited you not to spend the hour talking about fishing. Yeah. You can go and you can get all that on millions of podcasts, but can you have a conversation with two people that can kind of incorporate the outdoors into stress, anxiety, coping mechanisms, things like that. So again, in regards to where you see your career going the next 5 years, let's say, because that gets us both to about 60, where do you see you in 5 years? And before you answer that, do you see you in more of a structure where you're, I don't want to get in trouble with your employer, but like, do you see yourself in a more corporate structure, or a more structure where you're free to kind of do things like your own podcast, your own things like that? I mean, where do you see you?
Well, that's a great.
I know it is. That's why I was afraid to ask it.
It's a great question, but I can be in a sales management structure and still be very free, because I don't compromise my foundation.
Right.
So I've been able to achieve that and really be myself and pursue the things that I really want to do. Things like this, or whether it's a fishing podcast or a fly casting class or an ice fishing seminar or Lord knows what. I'm still getting that, like we say, that fix. Mm-hmm. So in 5 years, who knows? I mean, I love sales. I love people.
Right.
So to be able to have a team that you can empower and set goals and achieve those goals, and then we're just so fortunate because the peripheral advantage to that is I'm selling fishing rods, and I know what the rod is. It's a vehicle to enhance the experience too. So not only am I helping people along the way as well as me learning, but I'm selling them something that's giving them tremendous value. So there's a lot of we call the marginal utility, with a term we used to learn.
Oh yeah, I love that term.
Yep. The fishing rod is more the tool for the use to the passion, but there's a lot of benefits to managing people, as you know so well. Mm-hmm. Think of how many lives you've changed in what you've done, from the investment side or from people that work with you.
I know it's funny, people don't even know I spent 30 years running an investment company. They think this is all I've been doing.
Right. So I think anytime you're in a situation where you can affect people's lives, regardless what that is, it's really important. That's where I want to be in 5 years.
Yeah.
To answer that question.
How's the health of fishing right now? Since I scuba dive, I know the oceans are hurting. We saw so much damage to coral and the plastic in the ocean. And, I subscribe to a lot of podcasts where they have videos of whales getting tangled up in nets. It's like, that's the ocean. But I mean, in regard to like freshwater fishing in the United States, how is the health of the waters and the fish? And I know there's mercury in the walleyes in Canada. Is that still a big thing? I mean, are we in a pretty good spot with the fish industry right now in our country?
Yeah. Let me from
it's kind of a lot of questions there.
You put a lot into that question. Yeah. From 10,000 foot up, the answer is yes. But let's break it down. In terms of the health of the number of anglers into the sport's awesome, and when you get more anglers into the sport, what do you get? You get funding.
I was going to say, and they spend more. Yep.
So through licenses and fees and all those things. So, and that said, there's also a whole other branch through the American Sports Fishing Association and other groups like that are legislative. That if it weren't for people like that, they assist huge in clean waterways and
like Pheasants Forever,
Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. I could go on and on and on. So the 8 million new anglers into the sport of fishing is a wonderful thing. Now, obviously, it puts pressure on our fisheries. But what's good is catch and release is huge now.
Yeah.
You look at bass fishing.
Or slot fishing, right?
Slot limits, meaning for people.
Can you explain that real quick in 10 seconds what that means?
A slot limit is basically a min and a max. And if you catch one short of that or longer than that, you got to let it go.
You got to let it go. So catch and release is a big thing to keep the health of the lakes. And I know up in Canada we do walleye fishing, and you'll fish all day and catch a lot of fish, but they're outside the slot limit. But that's for a reason, right?
Well, and I've had very reputable muskie fisherman, James Linner, who's a good friend of mine, who's one of the biggest muskie names in the world, made a statement a while back: you have a better chance to catch a 50-inch muskie now than you did 25 years ago.
Interesting.
The reason why is a 50-incher is 40 once, as long as it's let go.
Oh, okay.
So, catch and release gets that fish an opportunity to get that trophy size. And we're seeing that in bass. We're seeing it all over the place. So that's obviously a really good thing.
Do you like the comparison to Crocodile Dundee I always make for you? In my book, I wrote about, I said you could kill a bear with dental floss from like 100, I don't know what I said, but I think I'm quite accurate in that assessment.
I got charged by a brown bear in Alaska.
That's one of my things I was going to ask you. What's the scariest thing that's ever happened to you in the outdoors?
There's a lot of them. I got charged by an Alaskan brown bear stopped from media away. And,
come on.
Oh, yeah. Full speed. I was fly fishing.
Now,
They call it a false
Common
charge.
sense says to run.
Yeah, no.
But me, I'm running. I'm tripping you and running as fast as I can.
Here's the thing about the human spirit that's so awesome. When you're in that situation,
I understand.
You go into a state of numbness.
You react
that
differently.
you don't even realize.
Right.
All I knew from research is to put my backpack on my shoulders to make myself look 8 foot tall. And don't look him in the eyes. Look at him right here.
Yep.
That's all I knew.
Right.
And don't run.
Right.
And then make sure you know how to change your diaper later.
If you have a diaper.
Short of that, there's not a whole lot you can do about it. But that was one of them. And then another time was on Lake Erie. I absolutely should have.
You guys boating?
The boat.
Big storm came in.
Yeah.
So you've had lots of.
Oh boy, I've had a lot of them.
It's interesting you bring up the bear because I get people with our scuba diving ask me. The first question I get is, "Well, do you see sharks?" Like, well, of course, it's the ocean. I mean, come on. We dive at night, 100 feet down on a reef in the ocean. There's no fences in the reef. And there's sharks down there. Every single dive we had in Grand Turks, there was reef sharks out there, and some came within 5 to 10 feet of us. Never once did I ever feel threatened.
Yeah.
And I ask people all the time, or I equate this to hunters going in the woods. You don't think of getting eaten by a bear. You take all the protocols. You bring the bear spray. You don't leave food out. I mean, just like in the ocean, I don't go there and trail stakes behind me on fishing line to attract sharks. It's like most of the animals in nature want nothing to do with you. They're not there to eat you unless you're injured or dying, and then they'll probably consider eating you. But a bear is going to try everything in its power to avoid confrontation. Most bears, except maybe grizzlies, right? Well, they actually actively hunt people. Would you say most bears are
90%
want nothing to do with you?
I don't have a percentage, but what I will say is the vast majority of the time, if it's a bear, for example, it's going to be one of two things. Either you walk up to find your elk 2 days later, and a bear's sitting there and guarding it because it's his kill now.
Well, of course it is.
Or number two, you in the springtime, a big female with a cub.
Oh, man.
Other than that, my deal was a false charge. He didn't want me fishing there because I was doing better than he was.
So it's like you see in the movie that comes crashing through the water.
Stopped right.
How big a bear?
Oh goodness, I don't know.
Were you by yourself?
Yeah, freaking giant. Yeah, just giant.
If the bear had not decided to false charge you, you and I aren't doing this podcast.
We wouldn't be on the podcast, but it looked, but was really, really kind of awesome.
Insane.
I'll never forget this. I could see the condensation in its nostrils. I could see it. It was just.
I mean, the hair standing up on my arm.
It was giant. It was giant, but it looked. I'm looking here, not its eyes. I've been told that, but it would look off to the side, and then it would look back like that, and it was totally analyzing what I was going to do.
And you were terrified, but you weren't acting terrified.
Horrified. I couldn't act it.
You think if you would have acted, you'd been dead?
I don't know.
If you would have ran, would have chased you?
Maybe that bear's so used to chasing fly fishermen off a stream, it was playing with me. I don't know. But
were you warned of that stream that this?
Yeah,
stuff...
and there were guides around with shotguns that had pepper bullets in them.
Yeah. I know what those are.
Non-lethal.
Yeah.
But they, of course, went in and left me out there.
The bear was watching.
We'll be back in 20
God, I don't know if I could go in some of those streams.
Well, diving with sharks would freak me out more
exactly.
than a bear, so
there you go.
There you have
Touche.
Yeah.
But I guess that's some of the fear things that people have to get by, and what COVID has kind of taught us as a society is that you can sit in your little protected, castle that you've created and insulate yourself from reality, or you can keep going out and fishing. And I've been on 3 scuba diving trips since COVID came out. And I had one time someone on social media posted something like, well, I can't wait till something opens up and I said, what do you things are open.
Right.
You choose. Exactly. I got one out, got tested. We flew. I got tested on the island. I got tested every place I ate. And I went on 3 trips, and you're sitting around waiting for someone to give you permission to go out into the world. That's on you.
I'm on your side.
Yeah, exactly. You're exactly. I agree with that. If you're waiting for someone to say, "Okay, Dan, time to go fishing," the door, ocean is open. The seas, the lakes are open. You're gonna wait till it's too late.
Right.
And I'm not good at waiting. You're not either. And for me, to me, traveling's been great in COVID. Yeah. No one's out there traveling.
Right.
I feel sorry for the people that are obviously been adversely affected by COVID, but the ones that haven't been but are terrified of it.
Right.
There's something else coming around the corner. Obviously,
there are negative effects in terms of suicide and depression and divorce and all the things that are attached to this
job loss.
Well.
Yep.
So I'm 100% on your side on that one.
Yeah, but so I think what I'll do to wrap up the show is I want to thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule, because we've rescheduled this a few times. And I do want to thank St. Croix because they've been a huge part of allowing you to go out there and be an ambassador and be an advocate for the outdoors. And for those people that know very little of you other than you're my brother, can you spend the last few minutes how people can reach you? What's the best place to maybe hear you, podcast related? What social media platforms are you on possibly that people can interact with you? And maybe say that for a few minutes and then we'll kind of wrap things up.
Yeah, I'm not on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, anything like that. And it's funny because one of the reasons why is because I did so much through work, from in terms of national TV to radio to seminars to this to that. I'm trying to manage sales and I didn't want to go there.
Right.
So, but to answer your question, that if anybody wanted to reach out, they could certainly find me through work. St. Croix,
or me,
or through you for sure.
I'm sure you'd be a great speaker at a noon Optimist Club or Rotary organizations or talking about the outdoors. They're always looking for speakers.
Yeah, and it's so much greater than fishing.
That's why you're the outdoor advocate.
We could have made this 3 hours.
Absolutely.
I have stolen.
Well, it's my podcast. We can go 3 hours if we want.
I've stolen a lot of Simon Sinek's.
Oh yeah, I know who he is.
Concept of the why, and I think that it really boils everything down and is so universal to so many people. It's just been awesome. The only thing I've done is use fishing as a bridge.
What is your why?
My why is my fundamentals. I mean, the reason why I do everything is, you asked me, I'm going to give you an answer, is to connect deeper with my faith and help people and pursue my passions in the right way to the best of my ability till my last breath. That's my why.
That's a pretty good why.
Yeah. So, and I can regurgitate that because I pray on it. I talk to myself about it all the time. I practice it, in my work and when I teach and when I learn, and all the things are all concurrent with that premise. But I think that the opportunity that I've been given by so many people, whether it's on a tank fishing instruction or whether it's in front of 500 people or whether it's on the ASA podcast out of Chicago or whatever it is, to be able to slip in the why once in a while and to be able to change somebody's life because they realize that's what really matters. And here's what will happen if you research it. And he's right on the internet, man. I mean, he's got millions.
Oh, I know. I follow him.
Everybody knows exactly what they do.
Yeah.
Very few people tell you how they do it, and fewer people know why they do it.
Right.
That's where we need to start, and we need to figure that out because, all this stuff defines you, right? And that place right there is a vehicle to get you to where you're going, scuba diving or what it is, but all these things tie together to define who you are, and very few people think that deeply. But if you do and figure it out, everything becomes so clear. It's like crystal.
Yeah.
So in other words, when I get up to go fishing anymore, or let's say I buy a new graph for my boat and I put it in there and I go out there at 10 o'clock at night, sit there with a Coors Light to go through my lake chips when the boat's in the stupid garage on the concrete.
Right.
And I'm in there going through my stuff. I know why I do that now.
Right.
It's totally, that boat is merely, no, not from a literal sense, it's a vehicle, but it is the only thing that is.
Yeah.
All it is fiberglass and plastic and gasoline and bells and whistles and $60,000 of stupid investment.
Right.
But what it is, it's that way to get me to where I really need to be.
It's funny you said investment.
It was one of the number one things I want to get across on this.
Not expense.
It is an investment.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But
totally
people look at a boat maybe or as something like that provides, an opportunity for you to be in awe of nature as a cost. And you said investment. I just thought that's a slip. I don't think consciously you knew you were saying that, but it's so true. And some people look at those things as like employees of a company, like as an expense. I've never looked at my employees. We have 7 full-time staff as a cost. To me, it's an investment. It's like putting money in a mutual fund or a stock or and when a business owner equates their staff to expenses, then their why is tainted as far as I'm concerned. It's not a genuine why. I'm asked frequently, how many followers do I have? How many listeners do I have?
Tonight.
How many books have I sold? I get that all the time. Now, I'm not going to lie. I have sometimes looked down at how many people listen to my blog, and I'll call Molly or I'll text her and say, Molly, there's a lot more activity. That's about it. It's very innocent, very manageable. But from a book standpoint, I told myself, Dan, that the minute I started looking at book sales, I would lose my why. And I have one big advantage in the living undeterred mindset and projects that I'm working on that trumps the majority of people out there doing similar things. I call them motivational speakers, life coaches, which I detest those words, detest them. I'm happy people are out there anointing themselves that. You write a check and become a life coach? I mean, is there an exam? I have no idea I become a life coach. To me, it's just, and I don't mean to piss off people, but I really don't like those terms. I figured out in my last blog exactly what I am. I'm a storyteller. That's what I am. I tell stories about my life with three things in mind. I'm helping myself selfishly to survive so I don't commit suicide over the death of my son. I'm helping honor my son, Seth, because he's no longer here to talk about himself. And I'm out there trying to help people going through similar things. That's my why. The number one reason why my why is different than most people that I just talked about, my distaste for some of these anointed labels people give themselves, is mine isn't driven by money. I have no desire to ever make money on anything I'm doing with this project, and I spend every moment of my life in this project, and that is passion. When passion is done with something that does not get blinded by money, then for me it's genuine and authentic. Now, with that in mind, I've been asked by certain people that I'm foolish not to quantify this. So I'm not ruling out the possibility of finding a way to raise funds, not to enrich me, but to enrich my nonprofit. So again, going back to my why, you talked about yours, you could regurgitate it. I had not rehearsed that. I just had three things pop into my head. I just added things to kind of tie it together. But that's my why. I'm not going to lie. My first why is Jeff Johnston. If I don't take care of my health and my life and my sanity, then I will join Seth. And I'm just not eager to do that yet. And then the second one is to honor him because he's not here to do that. I'm the only, I shouldn't say that. I'm one of a few people out there continuing his legacy. And, he was a felon. He was in prison. He died of heroin. He was an alcoholic. He was a drug addict. But that's how he died, but that's not who he was.
Right.
I'm obligated, Dan, to continue that story. And then there's people out there like you and me that have been through, I know I didn't want to put you on the spot and talk about the person that you lost in your life to addiction and those type of things. A very traumatic event for you, and I'm still confident that you deal with that daily. But that individual drives you, compels you to keep making sure your life is the best it can be. Death is a tremendous teacher. Death's an efficient teacher because there's no fluff. It's just death. You're gone. That's it. The party's over. Lights are off. And you got to find a way to deal with that. And I write obsessively about our disconnect with understanding death. Right. And I think if people had a clearer picture on adversity and trauma as not a impediment to happiness, but as a foundation to happiness, that we would have many more people in our country not killing themselves, not drowning their sorrows with alcohol, and not putting a needle of heroin with fentanyl in their arm, and that they would go fishing with their dad or go golfing with their son or go scuba diving with their son. And that's what you and I are trying to do is, I hate the word preach, but we're going to be out here preaching the idea that there are other ways to deal with life stresses, and the outdoors is at the top of that list. I mean, Dan, scuba diving is the outdoors.
Oh, totally. 100%.
Golfing is the outdoors.
100%. Yep.
So
playing music outside.
Yeah. Everything I've talked about is the outdoors, other than sitting in my room down here in our studio. But, well, I think with that, Dan, that's a good bow tie on this. We could go for hours on this topic, and
let me say something. And then I'll let you wrap it
up
real quick. What? First of all, I really appreciate the opportunity to come on this. Just the sheer fact I get to sit down and talk to you for an hour, gloves off, is awesome. But what's most, what excites me more than anything about what you're doing, and there's been a lot of topics you've talked about. You showed me kind of a little list of people you've talked to. Is you guys, you're teaching people to take the cloak off and be able to talk about everything.
Yeah.
We need a lot more of that.
Yep.
There's so much divisiveness, judgmental, stereotypical.
Yeah.
Stereotypical people.
Yep.
You have all these problems that we have out there, a lot of which could be solved if people would just talk and listen. You know, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. And this podcast is going to be a way for people to just talk, whether we're talking about whatever. We don't have to agree, but I think it's just awesome what you're doing.
See, I want to keep talking with you about this stuff.
Awesome.
Do you meditate?
I do. Well, I don't do it like you do. I think I need to get to your level.
But there's no level of meditation.
But here's what I do, and I don't know if I would call this meditation or not. But I have a morning ritual that I go through when I get up, and you can call it programming your brain positive, and so many people say it in so many ways. But I am, first of all, I reflect on a lot of things. I reflect on things that can make me better. I look at my strengths and I thank God for them. I look at my weaknesses and I know that I've got to improve those, doing it the right way. Mm-hmm. But most importantly, I think about how I can affect somebody's life every day, you know, positively. Whether it's a complete, utter stranger, just try to do something positive. So I have a lot of internal thought every day. Yeah. Nobody else around, you know, and that first light thing, and then I start my day. Whether you call that meditation or not, I don't know.
I wouldn't call, because actually meditation is almost the opposite of that, because you're trying to witness your thoughts. You're not, you're really not the author of your thoughts anyway. And we could get into the illusion of self and all that some other time, free will, all that stuff that people talk about. But meditation is the ability for you to be aware of. It's like if you sit in the woods and you're in your deer stand. You're not meditating, but you kind of are. You're in awe of your surroundings. You're hearing the birds and the leaves rustle and the wind blow, and you're just being aware. And that meditation isn't controlling your thoughts. It's the opposite. You're being aware of your thoughts. You're not judging your thoughts. I mean, imagine if we sat around and we actually got put in jail for negative thoughts. We'd all be in prison. Yeah. We'd all be on death row. Mm-hmm. And anyone says they haven't had a negative or a bad thought is just they're a bad liar. Mm-hmm. That's what they are. So meditation, the art of meditation, is nothing more than simply allowing aspects of your brain to settle down, and you're just aware of things. I've had meditation, Dan, for 6 months where nothing happened. Where I just sit there and all of a sudden I have to go back to my breath because I get thinking about a podcast, or I keep thinking about a bill I have to pay, or thinking about a call I have to make, and go back to my breath. You have a trigger, you have an anchor, they call them in meditation. So you're not trying to expunge thoughts. You're just letting, they're going to come in and they disappear. And the allure of meditation for me is, where does that thought come from and where does it go? And if you're aware of that, then when you're at the grocery store and someone bumps in front of you and you have an anger thought, well, you know that this is just a temporary thought, because every thought and feeling eventually goes away. So meditation for me has been a great way for me to control. I haven't been angry on anything in 2 years. I haven't had one moment of anger in 2 years.
How about your 7-iron that goes like 100?
I break it.
10
that doesn't count.
Short,
golf,
right?
Nope. We're not going to talk about my shanks on golf.
I've
golf
seen
is
some emotions.
Molly. Delete when we get to the golf part on shanks. Just delete that part, because my son Ian is laughing right now. No, but Dan, meditation has been a very good thing for me.
Sounds like it'd be good for everybody.
That's secular.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is, if you're a religious person, you could make meditation a part of your conversations with God, or maybe you're in awe of this celestial being. If you're an agnostic like me, none of that comes into play. But you can have 2 quality meditation sessions. I had one session, and we'll end the show because I know we're way over, where we were in St. Lucia, and I went off to meditate on this really cool rock overlooking the ocean. Never done this before. Most of my meditation is like in this room next to Eddie from Iron Maiden. And so I sat on this rock, and I'm doing my meditation. I do a guided meditation, so I have an app from Sam Harris called Waking Up, where he just kind of talks softly, and you get your breathing, and you're just kind of relaxing, and sitting on this rock, with the wind blowing and the ocean and the waves. I'm like, and the people scuba diving were sitting in their chairs kind of watching me. And all of a sudden, I came out of my meditation, and it was colder, like 10 degrees, and I was covered in water. And apparently, my meditation, which had normally been 10 minutes, went like 20, because my phone had stopped, and I still meditated. I don't know what happened, but I didn't realize the temperature dropped. And I came back, and they're like, Jeff, we were going to come get you because this storm came in. I swear to God, pardon my phrase there, but or respect my phrase. I I don't know what happened. It's the only time in 2-3 years of meditation I've ever had a surreal moment where I can't explain where I went. It was almost like I was on psychedelics, which I've never done.
Wow.
It was a weird experience. I don't attribute it to any intervention or divine spiritual thing. It was just my focus on being aware of my surroundings was so intense that I told myself, okay, Jeff, it took me 2 years to get to that 10 minutes, but it was worth every second of meditation moments that had nothing. That I just sat there going, this is, nothing's happening. People think you're going to drift off and talk to angels or something. It doesn't happen that way. The expectations of meditation are skewed the wrong way, and people do it and then they quit.
I appreciate the education.
Yeah, they don't get anything. I got friends that, I tried meditation for a couple weeks and quit. And I said, well, what did you expect? Well, I don't know. Well, obviously you expected something or you wouldn't have quit.
Right.
You expected to get transcended somewhere. So I would add meditation up there on the arrows into each person's quiver. And the beauty of meditation, you can make it whatever you want. There's no rules of meditation. You can have music, you can do incense, you can have it just quiet. You can go out in the woods and meditate, Anyway, man, thank you very much.
That was awesome.
Enjoyed it. For those people who, and I don't have my cheat sheet in front of me, so Molly, you're going to have to put this on the bottom of the screen. But subscribe to our YouTube channel. Is that right? Am I doing good? 5-star on Spotify. What else? Apple Podcast. Make sure you, what are they supposed to do? Like me on Apple or something? Subscribe on Apple. Yeah, I suck at the distribution of my content. I'm bad at, but the content I enjoy doing. So with that, Dan, that was fun. I enjoyed it. And as I end every show, make sure, get outside, do some fishing, do some hunting. But for certain, live undeterred. Thank you, brother.
You got it, man.